Good morning, Vikas Bagri. Nice to see you today. I am just. I told you messaged me that you're not really feeling well today morning.
Yeah,
Oh,
wasn't feeling too great, but little better now.
maybe after this session you might feel better.
Yeah, hoping to get some energy out of the session.
Uh,
Hoping to get some energy out of the session.
yes, it has been interactive till now. I was talking about again, policies, pestle model and PAMBIC models to the startups here. So yeah, before I pass it on to you, the mic, I would welcome you and the participants for this session, and also I would introduce you to the participants. Dear participants, we have with us today Mr. Vikas Bagri, good friend of mine. In fact, we studied together. He did MBA and I did MSc. So I will just read out his profile. Uh, so he did his education BTech from Information Communication Technology from Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of Information and Communication Technology, and then he did MBA Human Resource Management, Marketing, IT, Leadership, Entrepreneurship. These are his domains, and he did his MBA from Sri Sathya Sai University. Then he was a research affiliate. Then he was a social media advisor to the government of Chhattisgarh. Then he's a executive director in the Department of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. That's a Global Education and Leadership Foundation, and he was also part of the team of Sam Pitroda. So he's a very well-known person in IT revolution in the country. Okay, he was the advisor to the PMO. Correct me if I'm wrong. To Mr.
Yeah,
Dr. Manmohan Singh. When Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, he was having this different advisors for different things. Innovation and IT advisory was done by Mr. Sam Pitroda, and he had a team. Mr. Vikas Bagri was working in the team, and he was handling technology, innovation, and media. In fact, Mr. Vikas Bagri was one of the first few persons in the country to start a concept called hackathon. Okay, so that's his profile, and now he's an independent entrepreneur. Now he has been a co-founder of a company called Positive Gifts. I think you have changed the name of the company, Gift
No,
Positive Movement.
no, it's positive gifts, and we've during the time of Corona, because the need of positivity has gone up so much, we launched the Gift Positive movement.
Right.
Uh,
So yes, that's what he's doing, and he's also been independent consultant for many governments. I believe he has been doing this actively. So that is his background. So now I requested him to talk about some policy related issues and his learnings, how policies would impact the startup ecosystem, how you are learning at different, about these policies would impact your support to the startups, because you are setting up innovation centers in your colleges, right? So over to you, Vikas. And what we did was I would be giving some background information about today's current policies of the government, and he'll be adding his inputs and experiences. So with that note, I would start. So you want to add something before I?
so, well, I think I just wanted to, just start by understanding, who's on the call, and if they had any particular expectations or any particular questions. So I'm going to cover through a lot of work that we did at the Innovation Council. How do you think about innovation, at a national level? What are the challenges that we were trying to solve? Some of the tools that we used for promoting innovation and entrepreneurship. We also tried some experiments working with colleges. So I'm going to cover a lot of things, and if there are any particular questions, then I can just probably drill down into some particular aspects, leave out some other aspects. So it'll be just good to hear from some of you on, if you had any expectations, particular expectations or questions in your mind from this session. It'll be good to see some of you if bandwidth permits. It'll be great to get you on video.
Yeah. So we have very diversified participant here. Some
Yeah.
of them are, there is one madam from Tamil Nadu, and she's a Rotarian. She works for Rotary as a volunteer, and now she's also going to head an organization that will be working on vocational training. Okay.
Great.
And we have a dean on management from state-run university. Okay. And we have faculty from government degree college, and this college is present in a Naxal affected area in Andhra Pradesh. So a lot of the students who come are tribals, and innovations are at ground level, grassroots level, like National Innovation Foundation, that level innovations there, jugards and that kind of innovations. Then
Yeah.
we have some people who are the conveners of entrepreneurship cells in their colleges.
Sure.
And we have a principal here of an engineering college from Telangana, and we have faculty in nearby colleges. So some of them are management faculty, some of them are engineering faculty,
Great.
and a few of them are degree college faculty.
Sure.
So this is the kind of
Yeah.
classification.
Yeah. I just wanted to see if anybody had anything to say in the beginning. Good morning. You'll have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, let her finish. Let her.
Sure. First, Ms. Renuka, then followed by Ms. Usha.
Sir, just I had expectation how to set up incubation innovation center at our university, because management is not ready to spend money on that. So how
It's a policy
to
issue.
set up?
Okay.
From where to get funding, all those issues I wanted to get the insight on that.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Usha.
Sir, I have 4 districts like Vellore, Tiruvallur, Kanchipuram, and Tiruvannamalai. And I want to start occasional centers in all these 4 places. What could be your advice, and how, and what type will be better for these districts, sir?
Vocational centers. Okay.
Occasional skill training centers, or any other idea, if you could, something to betterment the occasion of those people over there, educated, uneducated, both.
I think you have got quite experience in that, because in policy level.
Sure. Who else?
So Janardhan Garu, you switched on your camera. You wanted to ask something?
Yeah, right now I don't have questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I thought that sir is going to introduce the participants immediately.
Sure.
Right now I don't have questions. Sir. I'll ask maybe later.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
You'll all need to just excuse me. I actually woke up with a really sore throat this morning. So I'm just going to take some tea while I'm going to talk, just to help my throat. So please excuse me for that. Okay, so so in terms of, I think, these 2 specific questions, you may not find very specific answers, but let's see if between me and Shiv Kiran, we can fill you in with some ideas. But overall, I think you'll generally get ideas on how to enable an ecosystem, because it's not just setting up of a center. Even if, for example, your management agrees, or you have the funds and you want to set up 4 centers, for example. Beyond that, you actually need to create an ecosystem, and you need to enable an ecosystem through various ways. And I think we'll cover more on that side, because in today's world, nothing happens through just one dot, so to say, one center. You need to create hub and spoke. You need to create partnerships. You need to create an ecosystem, which will facilitate, which will help, and so on. So I'm going to talk more about that. I requested, Shiv to actually fill in with some more recent
Recent policy
policy issues from the Startup India and so on. So we'll
Right.
come to that in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll share the link of the document that I'm showing all of you. So like Piroshiv mentioned, I have now spent almost 11 years with the government in various capacities. What I'm going to share right now is from the 5 years I spent at the advisor to Prime Minister's office and at the National Innovation Council. For me, that was a great time, to learn and interact with state governments and institutions around the country. I traveled across the country, promoting innovation. And what I wanted to share with you was more of a thought process than specific things we did. And you can, in your own ecosystems, since you're, heading various institutions or facilities or programs or ideas, you can see how you can sort of, learn from that. Can you allow me to screen share?
And Mowgli, can you enable screen share for him?
No, it's enabled.
Sir, it's already enabled, sir.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks. Just a second. Okay. So the National Innovation Council was essentially set up, late 2009. So we were a body from 2010 to 2014. We were set up as the head of the Innovation Council was Mr. Sam Pitroda, who was an advisor to the Prime Minister. This is a really nice coffee table book that we did, covering all the aspects of the work we did over the 4 odd years. And I'm just going to take you through, some of the work that we did. These are some of the members we worked with. Some known faces you will see here: Dr. Devi Shetty, Mr. Arun Mehra, the former Planning Commission, Dr. Ali Gupta, who heads the Innovation Foundation, Dr. Puri Rangan, you will be familiar with. In all, we had 16 members. Dr. Mashelkar and so on. Now, part of the work we did was, one, how do you create a platform for innovation? And really to help people think beyond traditional R&D. A large part of the country still thinks that innovation is only about doing research in a lab, and therefore, it goes back to say science and then technology. But we wanted to evangelize the idea that innovation is way beyond just science and tech and R&D, it could happen across streams, across domains. Then we promoted the idea of innovation being inclusive. Again, a lot of people think that innovation is something high tech. Again, going back to a lab, or it has to have AI or ML. Or needs to have some complicated jargon which a lot of people don't understand. But we promoted the idea of innovations to produce affordable and quality solutions. Especially what India needs today is more inclusive innovation, where through the innovation that we're doing, we're solving problems at the bottom of the pyramid. We are helping people where actual a lot of help is required, whether it be with farmers or in the areas of education, health, and so on. Where we have so many problems, where we need entrepreneurs to come and create social impact. Then we wanted to foster an innovation ecosystem. So an ecosystem needs people, needs funding, needs connectivity, needs partnerships, needs a whole lot of enablers, so that collaboration can actually enhance the value that you're producing. Then we looked at key drivers, and we wanted to again promote ideas for India. So parameters of, for example, sustainability. You do some great work with plastic today and produce some really nice products, but is it sustainable? And again, for India, sustainability is a must for the world today. But again, to look at parameters for India, like affordability and durability and quality, and then obviously global competitiveness comes with anything. and really importantly, solving local needs, right? So fine, I mean, you can sit in, say, Vishakhapatnam, and you are solving, problems for something happening in San Francisco. That's great. But can you also look at problems, happening in your own backyard and what kind of solutions they might need? So we were, propounding those ideas and promoting that, and discourse. So we did a lot of events, talks, we involved colleges. We had launched this whole program called Join the Conversation, where we had hundreds of colleges just joining us online every once in a while, where we were promoting discourse on innovation and so on. We also did a lot of competitions, which was a great tool to, crowdsource ideas and talents. So I'm going to skip through a lot of this, and this is online, so I'm going to share the link with you before we finish. So whoever is interested can actually go through, some of these ideas in more detail. But I'm just going to take you through what we did in broad, and just share more about the thought process. Now, these are again, key Indian challenges that we face as a country. A lot of disparity between rich and poor, between urban and rural, between educated and uneducated. So how can we use innovation really to reduce this disparity? Okay. Then our demography, which is both a challenge and an opportunity. So how do we really convert it into an opportunity? We have, 515 million, and these are old figures now, below 25 years. We have a lot of opportunity and again challenges in areas like health and nutrition, for the young, jobs for this demography. So how do we really convert them into, opportunities? Like Naxalism, I was advisor to Minister Office for a long time, and Chhattisgarh again, like has a lot of issues with Naxalism. Some of the common pieces of all these issues and challenges really that people are not getting enough opportunity, proper education, healthcare, and more importantly, jobs. And therefore, then idle youth will get into doing a lot of things for society as an all. And development as we expedite the process of development, create models. As facing challenges in education for over half a century now, but still we haven't found the right models where we can deliver good quality education at scale through government schools and across the country. These are a lot of initiatives we took. We set up state innovation councils, sectoral innovation councils, worked with various ministries in the government of India. So we were a small team. We were a catalyst, and our role was to just go and kind of seed these ideas, help people with research, connect people, create initiatives where we can prove models and so on. And so we did a lot of that, and I'm going to just take you through some of the ideas we did, and you can yourself see how these ideas could translate at your level. So for example, an idea of an innovation council, this is like a platform idea. You can create an innovation council at your department level, at the incubator level, at a university level, at a college level. You can call it an innovation council. You can call it a startup council, an entrepreneurship council, whatever term that goes with you and the management. And the idea for the council, really, what we did is really went to every state government. So I've traveled around the country with my colleagues, and we presented to chief ministers and chief secretaries saying, innovation is important. Why is it important? How can it help you promote GDP of the state? How can it promote, getting young talent in the state to do new things, and so on and so forth. And and then we would highlight certain aspects of the state, which are the strengths of the state. Okay, and therefore, similarly, you can highlight strengths of your own place, your own college, and so on. There might be faculties where you have strength, departments where you have strength, or focus areas for your college or university. And so we said, Goa, for example, tourism was your strength. A lot of young people come here. How can we use that? There's a lot of land available. How can we use that? And so on and so forth. And idea of the council was, see, in the government, what happens is, say you have to create a committee, from the same system, you'll have 5-10 people on the same committee. Now, if the same people who are in the system come on a new committee, it will not give new ideas, right? It will not generate new direction. It will generate the same direction because it's the same people. So the idea of the council was, fine, you have some representatives from the government, but then you invite a lot of people from outside. You invite young people, old people, experts. If you're looking at, say, agriculture or something else as an area of focus, then you say, okay, I'm going to get some agriculture experts in the council, and these guys can meet whatever frequency you set up, a quarter, at least twice in a year, and say, okay, this is what our innovation council is suggesting the college or the university or the incubation center to do, right? And that gives you direction, that gives you new ideas. They'll tell you what the latest trends are in these areas. So this is an idea for everybody to consider and use. We did it for all state governments in the country. I think we had about 22, 23 state innovation councils, if I remember correctly. Few of them still exist. Most of them were, 2, 3, 4 year old, time bodies. So they would have disassociated. These were how we sort of created structure of the council. You can read through it later. Similarly, we did sectoral innovation council, and we had 28. So the way we thought of innovation at a national level is, we are not going to innovate for the country, right? And similarly, you as heads of your own places, you are not going to innovate. You are not going to say, this is the best idea in agriculture, this is the best idea in healthcare, right? You are a catalyst, okay? And so therefore, you have to use some of these tools to enable the whole process, right? So your job in that sense is simple, but also very complicated, because you have to sort of rally around and get everything together and working. But you're not going to think of ideas. You're not going to say, this is a great idea, this is not a great idea. You're not going to pull in people, you work on this idea, and so on. Similarly, what we said for a country, the country is really, in terms of government, we have all the state governments that are looking at their own affairs. We have all the central line ministries, right, which are looking at their affairs. And as we said, innovation is a platform, not just R&D and science and tech. Therefore, you need innovation everywhere, right? So innovation in steel, for example, innovation in textile, for example, innovation in tribal affairs, right? Everything, all processes need to be relooked at, So we went to all these ministries, we presented them, we had some ideas, and finally we said, see, we are not experts. So drinking water and sanitation ministry, health and family welfare ministry, you create your own sectoral innovation council. You get the experts of health, into one place. Also, sometimes expertise comes from, not only new people, but from a new lens. So, for example, if you look at, a midday meal scheme in schools, it's an education ministry sort of work and an innovation they did. But really, it's a collaboration between education and healthcare, because ultimately you have to say, okay, what are we trying to give these kids? What is the nutrition we want to provide, and so on and so forth. So sometimes innovation also happens with cross-functional collaboration, and that's something we need to keep in mind. Then obviously, once you start getting ideas and people start working on prototypes, you need some kind of a fund that's necessary for innovation. It could be jugaad ideas, which, work on very low cost and low funding. But ultimately, to experiment things, innovation requires failure. You can't be right always the first time. So it requires some kind of funding to support. And today, there are numerous schemes of the Government of India and Startup India and all these incubators that government is setting up, and Atal Incubation Fund and so on. You could have your own university put in some money if they're sold on the idea. So funding is a crucial piece for innovation. The other idea is innovation clusters, and this again for you is really an idea where I'll tell you what we did and how we can translate this, in your place. So the idea here was simple. There are a lot of industry clusters in the country. There are places where a lot of people from the same industry gather and do stuff. Um, Shiv, you could help me with some example locally for Andhra, for example. I'll tell you one example of some place nearby Delhi. There's a place called Muradabad, and it's a world famous place for brassware. There are tens of thousands of artisans there just doing brassware in a small place called Muradabad.
In south, we have this Tirupur, Salem, Coimbatore cluster.
Exactly.
Textile.
Yeah.
So they have got an innovation center called two innovation centers, three basically. One is for SITRA, South Indian Textile Research Association. They do all the research activities for textile industry.
Yeah.
So any industry guy can knock their doors and get their problem sorted through research. Then there is a NIFT, National Institute for Fashion Technology, where the incubation center converts these ideas into products and translate this technology to the clusters. That's called Tirupur Export Association is there. There are 200 clusters, not clusters, they're centers, 200 small SMEs. So they can easily access the technologies there. R&D happens, technology scale happens, transfer to the industry happens.
Exactly.
Then we have Codicia. You know Codicia, right? That it's again Tamil Nadu in Coimbatore Industrial District Industries Association, where they have this set up this highway shops for this textiles. So end to end, inclusively, even small, tiny, all industries can benefit. That's one cluster.
Great. So
of course,
so
this
we did. Yeah, so we did a lot of similar things where we put together, we created a cluster association and said, why don't you interact? We connected them with CSIR labs. Right. So there's a lab in CSIR that actually works on metal and metal technology and so on. But they don't know what's the problem of the brassware cluster, and brassware cluster doesn't know that these great scientists exist and money, and so they have been in their own centers. That's why I started by saying that the concept of a center is of very low value today. You can do something in your own house, but unless you really set up collaboration and an ecosystem around it, it won't really scale to great heights. So we made these connections. Being government, we said CSIR metal guys work with brassware artisans. Brassware artisans come together, form an association, form an innovation cluster in your area, and say, okay, what are the top 5 problems you're facing, right? And so brassware guys said, our kiln has not been redesigned. There's a lot of health issues, a lot of pollution coming out from this, and so on and so forth. And so we connected these dots, and then innovation happened. Similarly, we did experiments different parts of India, including Krishnagiri in Tamil Nadu, which is famous for mangoes, food processing, I think. So this is another example where when you look at your own incubation center or your own vocational center or your own university, see how you can be part of an ecosystem, how you can be one of the dots in the ecosystem. And either somebody reaches out to you and say, hey, be part of our ecosystem, and do so, but also go out and create your own ecosystem with individuals and affiliations of different industries, different colleges. Like this was a good example that a research center does something, goes to NIFT, use their expertise to convert into product, and MBA students can work on it and convert it into a business plan, and how do you sell this and how do you market this and so on. Even doing a lot of these cross-functional projects will help students understand these ideas of collaboration, cross-connectivity, and so on. So these are all what we did in exact every cluster. Similarly, we formed we did some pilots with universities where we said, why don't you set up an innovation cluster, a center in your university, and then we connected different industry and so on there. This was a little idea we experimented with, and just then evangelize the idea of people doing this in schools and colleges, really taking a lot of waste, electronic waste, and getting students to, we said, tod fod jod. So you break that thing, then you repurpose it and you recreate something. You put it together and recreate it into something else. And that really allows you to enhance your creativity, to say, okay, how do we use certain existing things, repurpose that, and recreate something new. And we primarily did this in schools, but also promoted this in colleges. I think one of the issues with the general Indian ecosystem is that um, the elders in the system, whether it be parents at home, faculty in colleges, management, administration, seniors at work, for example, the elders in the system, and this is how we also vary from the West in a sense, where innovation, creativity is allowed at a very younger age. When at, in the home, when some kid will break something, he's trying to do something, and then parents will immediately come and say, hey, what did you do? You break this, don't do this stuff, and so on. And that really stifles the creativity in the early days. We as the system need to find ways of encouraging creativity, right? So if a student is saying, can I actually work on this project, and I'll have to miss 5 classes and so on, sometimes we'll come back and say, no, attendance is more important than you trying out new ideas, right? So your system should be able to, through policy, but also more important, through individuals, through faculty, through administration, say that, okay, we allow this. For example, I've closely worked with IIT Delhi on a number of things. And I remember several years ago, I think probably 4 or 5 years ago, they came out with a very interesting policy. So what happens in IIT Delhi, again, students, are innovative, they come up with ideas, they work on it as a project. But when the time for placements come, one, for students is a big risk, and especially IIT students are getting really good placements. So they say, hey, if I miss my placement this year and work on my startup idea, and after a year I've failed, then what will I have in hand? Then I have to go find a job, and I'll be considered a failure. And there's a lot of parents pressure saying, you better take a job, your idea is not great, somebody would have already worked on it if it was a great idea, and so on and so forth. So they came up with a interesting policy saying that any student, I think it was called a deferred placement policy, said any student who's working on a startup idea, and they had an incubator and so on, so they knew that the student is actually working on a startup idea, we will defer the placement by a year. So you take a year, you work on your idea, our incubator will support you, and so on. And after a year, if you don't want to go ahead with it, or if you fail and so on, you can sit for placements next year. So that really gave a lot of courage and strength to students and their parents, saying, okay, I have a chance next year to sit for placements, and I'll get a job. So there are things like this which we'll need to enable as the system, as elders in the system as well. Then ideas like the internet. Internet today is a great platform to promote innovation. Promotes collaboration, promotes connectivity. And we at a national level said we need all our panchayats to be connected with broadband. So we came up with this rural broadband projects. Today it's known more famously as Digital India. And we did a lot of initial experiments in Rajasthan in connecting panchayats and seeing what we can do there in terms of providing education, healthcare, etc. through this enhanced connectivity. So we did a lot of projects on that. Then we did a lot of experiments on inspiring imagination and innovation, through use of prizes, through challenges, through new media, innovation spaces, and crowdsourcing. And this is, I think, it's already 12:03. So I'll probably end with this. Crowdsourcing is a great way to actually sort of shake up a system, get people excited. If today you go back to your college and say, students, if you have an innovative idea, come to us. Maybe 1 in 100 students will come, or 1 in 500 students will come. But if you go back and say, okay, we are launching a challenge, or I'm not using jargon, it's called a challenge, it's called a hackathon, it can be called many other things. But we are launching a competition. This is the prize of the competition, and the prize should be interesting enough for students to get excited. And not only for students to get excited, but if an idea comes through, then really the prize should help that idea grow further. So you're not giving like 1,000 rupee prize, but something interesting enough for which more students will come together, and then work towards creating solutions for that problem. So it makes students start thinking about, a problem, how should we solve it, bring people together, create a team. There's a lot of learning for students if they start, if they can apply themselves to solve a problem. And the problem should be real time. We're not saying, okay, how do we land man on the moon? That's not a problem. It is an interesting problem. But I think if we're trying to do this and just energize our local ecosystem, we can go for problems where either that there will be sufficient funding help required, and you'll be able to go to sources, or the government is looking at certain areas, from Make in India to certain technology and so on. It could be problems from those areas. It could be a local problem, so that that the student actually has a lot of opportunity to solve the problem, right? So new ways of growing mushroom in your backyard or something, and adding value through innovation. And Shiv was giving me this example yesterday, and saying this is a problem. So students can actually go to mushroom growers and say, okay, farmers, what is exactly the problem here? Why are you not able to solve the problem? And then say, okay, technology will help solve this problem, or business process will help solve this problem. What will really help solve this problem? Or it's just a matter of connecting 10 of you and doing this together, right? Will solve the problem. So looking at local problems, coming up with local solutions, helping them apply it. Also, I think entrepreneurship overall is a journey. It's not your first idea that will create a lot of value or $1 billion. It could be a series of ideas. It could be a series of failures. Some ideas are ideas and cannot be converted into, practical business solutions. But so it's not a one-time thing. It's really a thought process. It's really, a culture that you need to create, a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship back in your places. And I'll just talk you through two particular ideas. There's something you can read up. We created, innovation spaces, science centers. So very simple idea. We said a lot of students come to science centers across the country. How about creating an innovation space to just evangelize innovation at every science center? So we did that. We had some ideas. We got some funding from the government, and this was rolled out. This was an idea where I personally led this whole initiative, and the motivation of this idea was that government spent so much time creating the 12th five-year plan, and we were sitting in the planning commission, which is now the Niti Aayog, and so we were kind of flued into the whole process of what's happening. But then people also started feeling that we need to engage more youth. When more than half the country is youth, we're creating a plan for the country, and we're not engaging so much of the youth, then it's not done. So we came up with an idea of doing a hackathon. We involved, I think, about 10, 12 colleges around the country, asked students to come in there. We said, hack into the plan, which basically means get into the plan, look at the data that we have of the country, create, infographics out of it, create apps out of it, and so on, and apply your creativity. And it gave students a way to, look at what the country is thinking in terms of 5 years. What is that they feel is important? How do they want to express that in terms of graphics or videos, films or apps and so on? And was a great success. This was the first ever hackathon that the government of India had ever done. This was in 2013.
2013, April.
Yeah, 6th, 7th April 2013. And one of the largest one, we had, I think, about 2,000 registrations. And an amazing, experience personally for me as well. We also, on the other side, there were 30 young people in the government who was running this whole initiative, because this is too new for the government. Nobody knew how to run this, and it was our idea. And so, the government had left it to this whole young team to run the whole initiative. So it was a great experience on both sides. The other thing we did was, as government, again, there's some problems which an industry will focus on. So for example, when you think of a problem statement to say, run a challenge at your end, you could also go to a local industry and say, okay, our students, we're doing this. If you as an industry have a problem, we would like to use that problem, launch a challenge in our university and get students to come up with solution. And if they do come up with an interesting solution, and you be the judge, because you are the industry, it's your problem, you be the judge, then you will promise to fund that idea further, right? And you can also talk about, depending on what the problem is, you can look at IP. You can either say the IP will belong to student or the university, or we'll have a combined IP where, okay, industry also has the IP and we also have the IP and so on. So those are, depends on idea and what the problem is and, how you're working that out. But we as government said that we want to do something for our workers, our sanitation workers, our construction workers, because the industry will never spend time and energy on these guys because, the return on that investment is not great. So we launched a challenge called the anti-drudgery challenge. How do you reduce drudgery? So we sought innovative ideas in the areas of, design improvements of work implements, better processes, new equipments, techniques for people like blue collar workers, street vendors, construction workers. I think we got about 500 odd ideas. Ultimately brought it down to 6 winning ideas. And here are some of these ideas. So, a classic problem, construction workers carrying load on their head, and all the load is really just on their head, right? So this person, Raghunath, I think is from Pune. This student came up with this idea saying, let us redistribute the load on the shoulders as well, as so it becomes more convenient. And this is a gear that he built. Then somebody came up with a cycle for physically challenged, right? If you don't have your hands, how do you drive a cycle? Innovative design of a rickshaw. Then a way to actually, instead of carrying the construction worker carrying loads, say 4 flight of stairs, build something. This team was from IIT Madras, where a very cost-effective way of using a motor and sending the load up at smaller construction sites. This example is amazing, not only because of what he did, but also just because of his age. Mr. Jivendranath Das, I still remember, I think he was some 70-year-old or 80-year-old person, and really a testament to the fact that innovation, is across ages. And he built this, picking grab for sanitation workers. So instead of picking everything by hand, you have this little picking grab and you can use it to pick things. And a display unit for hawkers and street vendors. So he was a design student. So very interesting solutions came up, and such challenges or competition is a great way of actually crowdsourcing both ideas and talent. Sometimes teams just come together for a particular cause because they're all passionate about this competition, and then that team really can go out and solve other problems as well. So I would really encourage all of you to use challenge as a tool for promoting, innovation. Pick up problem statements which are real, if possible, they're local, and if possible, you can find people connected to that problem statement. Experts who are connected to the problem statements, local industry or local farmers or local government, etc., or local non-profits who can come and help you understand the problem statement and so on, and also hopefully fund you for solutions. So yeah, I think I'll stop here. There's some more things you can, I'll share the link and you can go through this if it interests you. And I'll ask Dr. Shiv Kiran to actually, just take us through some of the things that Startup India is doing.
Actually, I would say Startup India is not anything new. When I see your presentation, it is a continuum, actually. And your policy is a continuum from the previous. So it's again an innovation in the government itself is a continuous process. So when you're talking about Digital India, Startup India, the kind of policies that have been brought up are only to de-risk the startup ecosystem, right? So you have to, one had to observe in Indian education system, on Western education system, there is a clear-cut demarcation, clear-cut domain, like education is different from innovation. Okay, if an industry has any problem in US or UK, they directly go to a professor in academic institute. Professor, I have this problem, I fund to you, why don't you come with a solution? So a lot of professors in many of the universities have started their own companies. But in India, it took very, very, very long time to come out of that. So that is the reason CSR labs have been set up. Actually, we don't need CSR labs. A university is supposed to do that work. But CSR labs have come is a testimony that our education system could not cater to their geographical problems. You said very well point. In fact, Usha Madam, the speaker, one of the participants, she also mentioned that some schools in Tamil Nadu where she lives have this bronchitis problem because a lot of landfill is there nearby school. Now this is a problem in every town, every city is there. But now a Rotary Club or your NGO can come together with the innovators, or can come together with some university and municipality, can float a challenge. So this is a government's, if you see government tagline, minimum government, maximum governance. So they want people to take proactive role, in policy making and execution and taking benefit out of it. So that is where the startup ecosystem is one thing. So in startup ecosystem, what happens? Your registration has become very easy. Your GST, you don't have to pay for up to 25 crores. You can bring investment from foreign countries. And even in the share patterns, I mean, I'll not get into detail, but in share patterns for the founders can be protected. If you want to IP, some point of time, like 5-6 years back, you want to get a patent, it would take like a lot of time, right? To write a patent and to get it tested or examined and then published and get a number. Then once you get a patent, then how to convert it to commercial product is another problem. Now, government has taken all the burden of patenting. You don't have to pay a penny, actually, right? And people think that getting a patent is only for engineering or graduate or someone. There are agencies like NRDC and National Innovation Foundation where you can get patent even a unpad army, they call it, like, a uneducated person or those who do not have literacy knowledge, background, still they can get a patent. If you go to National Innovation Foundation list, you see a lot of farmers have patented some of the agriculture implements. So this is one, government's vision. So it's all like same minimum government, maximum governance. Public-private partnership is what they're looking at. If any, you're talking about George Ford thought, right? So there is the same thing, Atal Tinkering Labs. Now they have given 15 lakhs to each school. 5,000 schools are there. This year, again, they are rolling out another 1,000 schools. So 15 lakhs is a big amount to a government school, especially if it is a tribal setting in Naxal areas or somewhere like that, like Kandamal, Kalahandi, that kind of reasons. 15 lakhs is a big amount where students, as you said, like they just play around. And we are, in fact, guiding few student groups. So that is at school level. Now, when it comes to college level and university level, we have incubation centers. And do not think incubation center as a physical entity, as as Vikas also said, it's a total ecosystem. It includes the public, it includes the industry bodies, it includes R&D, it includes even parents many times. Okay, so like that. Then community innovations, right? So where NGOs can take great part. Now even NGOs can apply for what is this called innovation funds, DST fund to certain breeds of cows. Okay, Punganur cow is one, and Kerala is another cow, and like that. I mentioned about Krishnagiri. It's very interesting cluster near Tirupati. Krishnagiri and Tirupati is not very far. Tirupati, there is a park, food tech park, that is funded by Ministry of Food Processing Industries, MOFPI. A lot of food processing equipments are there, big equipments. So what you can do, you can just take mangoes, get it processed, packed, labeled, and get back. So you don't have to set up an industry to run a food processing industry. You don't have to buy a distillation unit. You don't have to buy a mango puree making unit. You don't have to, put again, getting a license, permissions. No, there are clusters already established, like this in Tumkur. It's in Karnataka near Bangalore, where the government has funded a private entity like Future Group. Future Group and government have come together and set up a processing unit where you can take your fruits and vegetables processed and get it. So you don't have to put any infrastructure investment and infrastructure for your industry. So these are all some policies. These are all like possible only through policies, right? So policy could happen at government level. See, the way government looks, the way you look, and the same thing would be very. Let us take the example of mushroom itself. Here, people can think that mushroom is one way of doubling the farmer's income. right? If you look at mushroom, it's a vegetable like any other vegetable. But if you see normal vegetables like any gourds or radish or carrot, it would take 50-60 days to grow. And it's a lot of variables are there. Rain is there, market issues, then labor, excess rain, pesticides, so many. But mushroom is grown inside the home, not outside. So you are safe from excess sunlight, excess rain, pests, everything. And 45 days is a life cycle. It means that 6 cycles you can grow mushrooms. Mushroom is a high value crop. So this is where how, suppose a agriculture university graduate or professor can translate the technology of growing mushrooms into farming community nearby. So if they pick up that farming of mushroom farming, so their value of the vegetable would go up. Their what is that called, income would go up. Now again, second point is business. How farmer knows about the business. That is where again research organizations or innovation centers will come, where they help them in translating their product into processed food. So this is a basically whole cycle. And the professors who are here, if they want this kind of thing, somewhere you have to start. Sometimes I think Dr. Renuka was telling that your university doesn't have a fund or anything like that. It's not about fund, madam. When I set up the same incubation center in Vignan University, I started with 0 rupees. Okay, because it's an university. All the materials you have, professors you have, intellectual proper wealth you have, and all the equipment you have. Just you got to map. Okay, you got to map them and prioritize certain low-hanging fruits and translate some of those into your nearby beneficiaries. You tie up with an industry or a government bodies. That's what government looks at when they say Atal Community Innovation Centers. They have funded this time 5 crores to each innovation center. So innovation at community levels. So the purpose of this community innovation centers is to scout for the innovations or to scout for the gaps and fill those gaps in the communities through innovations. Okay. So that is what the difference between incubation center and community innovation centers. And many universities have set up community innovation centers. Just for instance, I can give you the Gandhigram Rural Institute in Tamil Nadu. Okay, they have been doing it. Centurion University in Parlakamundi, Orissa is doing it. Banastali Vidyapith in Rajasthan, they are doing it. There are private universities, by the way. None of them are government universities. Okay, they don't need to do that, but they have been doing that. And by the way, private university like Centurion University is getting more money by technology spin-off rather than admission fee. 3 times the money. Now recently, Cafe Coffee Day has set up its innovation center in Centurion University. This is a very good example of how your students can get the skills of brewing coffee, roasting coffee. That's a different skill, right? In Coffee Day, coffee itself is a different industry. So industry has come to academic institute, provided skills, and they have set up a center. So even this is possible with the industry. You can set up innovation centers in your own college, domain specific, for example. So, that's what how mushrooms are looked at community levels. But if government wants to look at mushrooms as one thing is, how much mushroom is being imported into the country? Okay, one thing. And our mushroom consumption is very less. How do you promote mushroom consumption for people who do not have access to the protein? Okay, protein malnutrition is one of the big challenges for the government in terms of nutrition. How are you going to address through mushrooms? Because mushroom is agriculture waste. From agriculture waste, you can grow. Suppose if I want to grow soya bean, you are occupying a lot of agriculture land, a lot of water goes to that. Okay. And same thing when you compare to mushrooms. Mushroom is like 40-45% is a protein. And it comes from an agriculture waste and its value is very high. So this alternatively one can think of mushrooms. And one need not go for exotic mushrooms which they grow in Himachal Pradesh. Actually, that is not a native of India. One can look of native mushrooms in India. There are a good number of native mushrooms in India, which we have been eating for a long time, like milky white mushrooms, oysters, all those things. So this at national level, one can think that. I can give you one example, sir. We were working with WWF India, okay, Central Landscape in Madhya Pradesh. So there, tribal women what they did, they have set up under women and child empowerment scheme. This is called Tejaswini Fund in Madhya Pradesh. It's called. So they have given some 10 lakh rupee for this SHG women. Okay. They have set up a processing unit and burfi making unit from mushroom, from millets. So now, anyway, Anganwadis have to give some kind of burfi or something made up of peanut or something, some protein rich and fiber rich to the kids. So instead of giving the tender to the outside vendor, the government has allowed this tribal women who have set up this, chicky making unit to participate in the tender. Okay, and this Anganwadi department buys from the tribal this Tejaswini group. So the whole cycle they are able to cover. So it is self-sustainable. Now once they got initial investment, initial money, they are sure that Anganwadi is going to buy from them. Now with that money, they have put their own money again. And now they are going for good branding. Now the government has called us. Actually, the collector of the district called us to see whether we can do branding of these tribal products. So it was possible, but government changed. So again, you know what happens when government changes, priorities do change. So collectorate changes. Jabalpur is a constituency.
Um, Shiv, just sort of looking at the time, we have 5 minutes left.
Right.
I thought if anybody has
has question, yes.
Yeah, or even comments or any ideas they got, or anything they want to share.
Yes, sure. I'll stop here. Now we can discuss later also. So participants, if you want to add something or ask something, this is the time.
Sir, you just share us the links. We'll go through them.
It's already shared, madam.
In the chat, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I just shared in the chat. I also shared 2 other links.
Yes.
I think, for all of you, it's important to register yourselves on the Startup India thing and the Women Entrepreneurship, which is done by Niti Aayog. So that, you get, these are 2 main sources to get information from the government on what's currently happening, what are the new schemes, new policies, and so on.
Women entrepreneurship, it has a separate link or it's all in the same?
No, separate is it.
That also you will send, sir?
It's there.
Already shared.
Already shared. Okay.
Yeah.
That's called WEP, Women Entrepreneurship.
Oh,
Program.
the WEP. Okay.
Entrepreneurship program.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a part of again Niti Aayog only, but it's exclusively for women.
Okay.
Right.
Ms. Usha, did any of what we discussed answer any of your, did it give any insights into your question?
I got a basic idea, sir, but I would like to have some more, I'd like to, have more distinct answers for that. Like, according to the regional, how actually I should judge. You have told me the basic things, but when I want to, it's not going to be the same in all the 4 places.
Exactly.
See, that is what I wanted to tell you. It's not, I don't want it to be the same in all the 4 places. I want it to be geographically studied and also the market of those particular districts, and have 4 different types of centers.
Locations.
So that is what I actually want to know.
No, but that answer, see, I or Shiv can't give you that answer. You'll have to, I'm sitting in Delhi, I don't have any clue of your region, right? So
Okay.
it'll have to be your people, you'll have to say, that's why I was giving you these broad ideas. For example, a council. It could be a team, put together a team, some of your professors, some students, maybe an expert or 2, who's done work on vocational from outside. And then that team should decide, okay, this is how we're going to study this place. These are the vocational skills that are required. We're going to interview 10 people, 20 people, 100 people. This is how we're going to reach out, right? And they'll have to projectize it and say, oh, this is the report we're going to give back to Ms. Usha.
Or will it be ideal if we just start an information center for them, and then they can find what is necessary for them and do it?
Again, see, I'm tempted to give direct answers, but I don't want to give direct answers, because unless you understand the problem, and I don't understand your problem and the problem in the area, right? So I don't want to give you a direct answer of what is a good starting point. I think one of the basic things we all need to do is to first really understand the need, right? So even the need of vocational in your area and who will come and what will be the model like? Are you going to charge these people after training? How are they going to get jobs and so on? If you want to look at government for assistance, we have the whole national skills mission that you can reach out to, and maybe they can guide you on specific thoughts. Also, I have known through my work in the government, people at Amrita University in Kerala, they have done a lot of work on vocational education. And in fact, they had last I had seen several years ago, they were building an online platform for delivering vocational skills in certain areas for women and otherwise through their platforms. So they were creating content and so on. So that might even give you a head start if you can reach out to Amrita University. There's some skills lab there which is doing this work. There was one Professor Bhavani, I think. Yeah. But I think starting point is really for you to put together a team of your professors and students and say, why don't you go and apply whatever you're teaching and whatever you're learning, go apply those skills in the field and tell me, what the problem here is. So it'll be a good thing for them to learn. Even if you don't get anything out of it, it'll be a good experiment for you to do and for them to learn, right?
Okay.
That how do you actually look at a problem? I mean, a student is supposed to go get a job in an industry and apply the skills. This is a good, starting point.
I can add one point here. See, there are few government, I think he made a point, skill development, skill mission, national skill mission. Under that, National Skill Development Corporation is one thing which is tying with both public and private people to set up the skills, centers. Then DDU GKY, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramina Kaushala Yojana. This is especially for rural students. Okay, and they have tied up with Reliance, DMart, all these platforms, right? One is service, one is stock management, one is like different skills they need, no? So even stitching, many things. Okay. Then PMKY, Prime Minister Kaushal Yojana. There a lot of skills are there. Even some soft skills like typing, computer knowledge, and a little higher like GST, Tally. That's different domains. So like that, 3-4 government itself has got, and people can take franchisee or license for such to run such centers. In Anantapur also we have.
Okay.
So the rural 20 students, they take per batch, they train them in one particular skill like textiles, how to fold, how to put that barcoding, how to put that magnetic, how to bill. So, and it is a tie-up with these companies, they hire these people from here. So you have sort of almost a complete cycle, like till hiring process. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hand-holding happens. Apart from that, even Vikas idea is really, people have to do these NGOs. They have to tie up with some local professors, universities, because Department of Social Work and Rural Development departments are there in every university. Maybe you can talk to their heads or professors, because they'll be doing that, and that also good, collaboration for them as well.
No, and just mix and match, put one technology guy, put one MBA guy, put social work, I think a lot of these skills, we sometimes become too siloed in departments.
Right.
Right. And this is basic problem solving skill, which every person should know across departments.
Yes.
Right. They can bring their unique perspective from their educational background. But I think it'll be good for you, and I mean students will also get excited. They'll get to learn, about local ecosystem. And you could form different teams. You could give a little award saying, okay, best report, best presentation, I'll give 5,000 rupees or something. Just to sort of make them excited. And actually, you'll be amazed by the kind of ideas that young people bring back. Sometimes we overthink and say we need a lot of expertise, we need government to tell us and this, that, other, really not required. You just get young people together and, give them enough leeway and scope to do things their way. They'll come back with amazing ideas.
Okay. I got the idea, sir. Thank you.
Right. Anyone else? Okay. If participants do not have any questions, I think we would close this session, right? So Thank you, Vikas, for your time. Though you had a very bad throat, so you could manage, and you could really give some directions to the people. Hope some of this got some insights. See, one can only give broader perspective on our learnings. They have to tailor make for their own need, and they have to make their own calls, right? So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you everyone. Hope this was useful. All the best
Right.
to all.
Thank you, sir. It was very useful.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So I hope the participants in